Black Ops Narrative, Season 2, Act 27, Incident Owner. Hart had spent most of his life learning how the system protected themselves. Tonight, he learned how they ate their own. The first footage hit internal channels before dawn. Not the kind of civilians saw, not bloody, not a body. A clip of Hart walking into a secure building 3 nights earlier, time-stamped, grainy, framed from above like guilt had hired a camera crew. Then a memo, then a directive. Then the language that always comes before the burial. Incident ownership assigned. Preliminary irregularities under review. Pending containment transfer. No one had to say scapegoat. The paperwork already had. Reyes read the line twice and felt his jaw lock. Lena was beside him, screen glow on her face, fingers moving fast through mirrored traffic and burned relays and route fragments. She had slept maybe 20 minutes, only because her body had staged a mutiny. Transfer route changed twice, she said. That means they're not moving him for security. They're moving him for authority. Torres leaned against the wall with a rifle across his chest and had an expression that looked like one decision away from damage. English. They want witnesses, Cruz said, from the doorway. Bishop didn't turn from the window. Public enough to legitimize, controlled enough to survive. Lena nodded once. Exactly. Reyes stared at the feed. Hart exited a black sedan. Hart guided by 2 internal security officers in plain clothes. Hart not resisting. That was what made it cruel. The footage wasn't made to prove force. It was made to prove compliance. Keller didn't want Hart dead in a ditch. He wanted Hart filed. The transfer point was a government-adjacent logistic yard to the southern edge of the city. Part motor pool, part records department, part institutional graveyard. The kind of place where vehicles, bodies, and blame all could change ownership under fluorescent light. Lena found it by following the thread nobody else would have seen. Not Hart, not the convoy, a maintenance request. One refrigerated holding bay flagged for emergency power even though the weather didn't justify it. Why would a paper transfer need a cold storage? Torres asked. It wouldn't, Lena said. Cruz's mouth twitched under humor. So the paper transfer is a human transfer. Bishop looked down from the window, or a corpse transfer. Nobody spoke for a second. Then Reyes said flat, he's alive. It wasn't hope. It wasn't a working rule. Lena looked at him, reading the difference. Then we move like he is. Reyes nodded. 2 key. Lena answered instantly. Confirmed. Torres sighed, staring at the hate that phrase. Cruz gave him a sideways look. That's because it keeps you from doing something inspirational and stupid. Torres looked genuinely offended. Inspirational, sure. Stupid, subjective. Even Bishop almost smiled. Almost. Then Lena turned her laptop around, a plain sight. 3 fences, 2 guard sheds, 1 internal yard, loading bays at the east side, a records annex of the north, and the refrigerated transfer unit at the rear, isolated just enough to feel administrative. They're moving him under compliance authority, Lena said. That means cameras, logs, sign-in chains, vehicle IDs, and at least 1 civilian witness officer whose job is to make it look boring. Reyes studied the map. Good. Torres frowned. Good. Reyes' eyes stayed on the layout. If it looks boring, nobody's ready for violence. Lena tapped the plan. This cannot become a gun battle. If it goes loud, Keller gets the story he wants. Rogue operatives interfering with a lawful containment transfer. Cruz nodded. So we break the transfer without looking like we broke the transfer. Bishop said, it cleaner. We create a plausible internal failure. The room went still. That was the move. Ugly enough to work, clean enough to blame the machine itself. Reyes looked at Lena. Can you do it? Lena didn't answer right away. Then yes. Torres grunted. That answer usually cost us. Lena's eyes met his. Everything costs us. They rolled out at 0300. No convoy, no stack, no cinematic nonsense. Cruz and Bishop went ahead separately. Torres took the outer lane in the municipal service truck they had borrowed in the moral sense, not the legal one. Reyes and Lena rode a record van with forged transfer tags and enough fluorescent tape on the windshield to look institutional. The city was quieter now, but not asleep. San Cordova no longer slept. It braced. At 0300, they reached a visual range of the yard. It was exactly what Lena predicted, lit, logged, and spiritually dead. Chain link fence crowned with razor wire. Guards booth glowing pale with monitor light. A line of white vehicles parked in numerical obedience. No visible urgency, which meant the urgency was somewhere inside. Bishop's voice came through the comms, soft and precise. Overwatch set. 4 visible rifles, 2 roofline, 2 walking. Cruz. North fence clear. Camera loops are ugly but unusable. Torres outer loop lane. I can jam the gate if needed. Lena watched the guard's booth through binoculars. Key 1 authorized timing. Reyes kept his eyes on the yard. 2 key authorized action. Torres muttered, we know. Reyes didn't look away. Say it anyway. A beat. Then Lena steady. I authorize timing. Reyes, I authorize action. There it was. Not a slogan, a doctrine. Something they couldn't hide inside when the room got ugly. They entered the yard exactly like a bureaucrat intended. Slow, visible, boring. The records van rolled to the checkpoint. A security officer stepped out carrying a tablet, the kind that face that had never chosen anything larger than a lunch order. He leaned down into Lena's window. Transfer authorization. Lena handed him the folder without hurry. Inside, forged route sheets, a compliance seal, a maintenance variance tied to emergency power, request she found earlier. The officer scanned the first page, then the second. His brow furrowed. This says Bay 4, he said. Lena gave him a look reserved for people delaying procedure. It says Bay 4 if you want to be liable, she replied. Bay 7 if you want continuity. The officer blinked. He looked back at the paper. He wanted to be correct, more than he wanted to be blamed. That was the true skeleton key of every system on Earth. He stepped back and waved them through. Torres' voice crackled in Reyes' ear. You flirt weird. Lena didn't miss a beat. Paperwork responds to confidence. Then drove it in. No alarm, no friction, which meant the friction was still ahead. Bay 7 was in the rear yard. Refrigerator unit. Internal loading cage. 2 officers outside, 1 clipboard inside, and a white transfer van backed into the dock with the rear doors still closed. Reyes saw the details immediately. The van engine was running, a live cargo. Bishop saw it too. Heat signature in the rear compartment. Torres, that's him. Lena checked the thermal bleed from a handheld scanner. 1 seat body, 1 standing, maybe restrained. Cruz came low over through the comms. North side got a side door. Electric maglock. Reyes pulsed slow. Working pace. Not rush. He stepped out of the van in a gray maintenance jacket and hard hat. Anonymous enough to insult him. Lena stepped out beside him carrying a clipboard she hadn't earned but wore it like a rank. They approached the officer's docks with intuitional contempt. The officer looked up, "You're early." Lena didn't slow. "You're exposed." The officer frowned. "Excuse me?" She shoved the foreign sheet into his chest. "Emergency continuity update. Cold chain deviation. If the transfer sits here another 4 minutes, ownership moves to your badge number." That did it. The officer's face changed in a tiny, holy way. Faces change when blame becomes personal. He reached for the paper instinctively. Reyes gave Lena the briefest glance. "Hold," he murmured. "Confirm," she said. "Move." And while the officer's eyes dropped, Reyes acted. Not a strike, a stumble. He clipped the officer's rifle sling with 2 fingers, twisted it, and sent the weapon into the loading rail where it jammed hard between 2 metal posts with a crack. The second officer turned, and Cruz appeared out of nowhere behind the man, a shadow with elbows, wrapping him just long enough to put a taser nod to his collar. A silent convulsion. Caught a body. No gunfire, no shouted warnings, just administrative illusion, 1 man at a time. The inside dock office, the clipboard clerk stood too fast. He reached for the wall radio. Lena hit the switch on the clipboard that she was carrying. It was a clipboard. It was a clone terminal badge. The wall radio died. So did the local camera feed. So did the badge logger. For 30 seconds, Lena said. Then the anomaly flags. Torres whistled softly. "Everything you do has a timer." "Everything they do has a timer," Lena said. "I'm just borrowing." Reyes went to the transfer van. Rear door locked. No visible handle release. No internal latch. Of course. Containment architecture. Cruz was already there. Slim tool in hand. 5 seconds. 3, Bishop said in Reyes' ear. Cruz smirked. "Show off." The lock clicked. Reyes opened the rear door. Hat sergeant side would have bolted to the bench. Wrists flex cuffed, jacket gone, shirt collar open, face bruised once along the cheekbone in a way that had been done by someone careful not to leave a story. 2 internal security men sat opposing. Not contractors, not hunters. They were state men, tidy, alert, arm low. One of them looked up and actually had time to be surprised. Then Torres hit the dock, not by ramming the van doors. He clipped the steel ballard with a service truck at low speed, hard enough that the truck lurked sideways into the loading platform. The impact jolted the dock, kicked the transfer van against the wheel, and stopped, and threw the both guards off balance into the metal wall. Loud enough to feel a logistic accident. Hart enough to ruin the room. The whole bay erupted with sound. No clean up now. Now it's like system failure. Now it looks like too many procedures touching at once. Hart looked up through the chaos. His eyes found Reyes. For the first time all season, Hart didn't look controlled. He looked furious. "Absolutely not," Hart snapped. Reyes almost laughed. "Almost. Good to see you too." One state man recovered faster than he should had and brought his pistol up from the floor. Hart moved first, not elegant, not tactical. He simply drove his shoulders into the man's arm at exactly the right, bad angle. The shot went wild into the van's roof. Reyes was inside a fraction later, stripping the weapon free and slamming the guard's face into the bench rail. Cruz hit the other one before he could orient. Lena was already cutting Hart's restraints. Hart glared at all of them like they were medical error. "You cannot be here," he said. Lena didn't look up. That's becoming a pattern. The cuffs dropped. Alarm light flashed amber over the dock. Not a full siren. Internal escalation. Bishop's voice came calm but faster now. Roofline moving. "You've got 90 seconds before this turns into a story with rifles." Torres backed the service truck away from the dock, engine screaming, "Then let's not be here." Hart stood too fast and grabbed the van wall. For a half a second, the handler vanished and the human appeared, dizzy, hurt. trying not to show either. Reyes saw it. Hart saw it. Reyes seen it, which meant Hart got angry again. "Do not make me your priority," Hart said. Reyes' face went flat. "You're not. You're evidence." Hart stared at him. Then, despite him, barked one laugh. Still a bastard. Operationally. Lena snapped the clone terminal bridge off the dead clipboard. "We had a bigger problem." She turned the screen. "Transfer exception logged, incident owner updated." Below it, Reyes R, probable, interference, vector. Torres looked over his shoulder. "He put your name in the form." Lena's voice stayed cold. "No, it was queued." She scrolled once, exposing hidden metadata. "Pre-filled before we arrived." Hart read the screen once and swore like a man with his first religion who had been paperwork. "The system didn't decide," he said. "Someone already typed his name." Keller had just anticipated the interference. He pre-authorized the box it would go in. Hart looked at Reyes. "That's the real transfer, not me." Reyes met his eyes, talking while moving. They moved, not as a team exiting triumphantly, as a broken process. That was the only skin they could wear now. Torres drove the service truck crooked through the yard, sparks coming off the front bumper. Cruz ran interference between parked vehicles, slamming one security car into another to create a medical knot. Bishop shot only cameras and lights and one tire, never a body. Lena rode the passenger side of the transfer van, ghosting through a clone terminal while Hart, in the backside, Reyes, finally started talking. "Keller isn't the problem," Hart said. Reyes looked at him. "That's the funny thing to say, with the hand on your throat." Hart wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and back of his wrist. "Keller is a chamber," Hart said, "not the round." Lena turned slightly from the front seat. "Who loads it?" Hart didn't answer right away. Outside, a siren faintly committed existing. Then Hart said, "A steering group, rotating, state, commercial, deniable. Keller's chair's implementation. He does not orientate intent." Reyes absorbed that. "Not king, clerk of violence." That almost made him worse. Cruz's voice came over the comms. "North fence breach point is hot. They're stacking." "Then we don't take north." Lena's fingers moved faster over the terminal. "Wait." Everyone waited because Lena said, "Wait," in that tone. Usually had a hidden hinge. She looked up. "There's a waterway service gate on the east retention line. It opens for 14 seconds every hour for municipal runoff inspections." Torres snorted. "Of course this country has tactical sewage." Reyes almost smiled. "Almost. Can you open it?" Lena looked at the terminal. "I can make the yard believe it's already opened." Hart stared at her. "Who exactly are you?" Lena didn't bother with humility. "The reason your paperwork keeps betraying you. The one that landed." Even Hart respected it. Bishop's voice sharpened. "You got movement overhead, drone." Reyes looked up through the cracked windshield and saw it. A small quadcopter lifting above the yard lights. Red status. Blinked steady as a pulse. Not military, not administrative, evidence collecting. Keller wanted the exit. Wanted faces. Wanted sequence. Wanted ownership. Reyes felt the old urge rise. Shoot it. Solve it. Force clarity. He looked at Lena. Two key. Lena already knew. "Hold," she said. He held. 3 seconds. 4 seconds. Then Lena's device chirped. "Now." Reyes leaned out the window and fired one round. The drone dropped straight into the roof of the parked car and disappeared and burst into sparks. One shot, late enough to look reactive, early enough to matter. Wrong lesson. East retention. Gate slid open. 14 seconds. Torres drove like the truck offered him personally. They shot through the gap, scraping paint, snapping the mirror, dragging a spray of fence wire behind them and the yard was trying to keep its peace. They left the signature in the metal, and then they were out. No clean victory, no applause, just 6 people breathing hard in a stolen vehicle while the city behind them began writing the report. They ditched twice before dawn. First the transfer van, then the truck. By sunrise, they were half dead in a warehouse that smelled like rope, mold, and diesel memory. Hart sat on an overturned crate with a towel pressed to his cheekbone, and all the gratitude of a man forced to survive on someone else's term. Torres paced. Cruz checked Essex. Bishop watched the water through broken slats. Lena worked. Torres stood in the middle of the room, reading the clone log. Reyes, probable interference vector. He read that line until it stopped looking like text and started looking like intent. Keller hadn't wanted to keep Hart. He wanted to assign Reyes, turn him from disruptor into incident owner, make him legible, make him burdened, make him choose responsibility until responsibility became a cage. Hart lowered the towel. They're going to use this, he said. Reyes didn't look up. I know. They'll circulate your name quietly at first, Hart continued, across partner channels, compliance desk, security liaisons, insurance underwriters, ports, airports, procedurement screens. Torres stopped pacing. That's not a manhunt. No, Hart said. It's words. Lena finally looked at her screen. It's pre-denial, she said. They're making him fail doors before he reaches them. Bishop turned from the water, a blacklist with calling it. Hart nodded once. Exactly. Reyes folded the printed log in half. Then again, not from nerves, from control. What do they call it, he asked. Hart's eyes stayed on him. Administrative attrition. That one sat in a room like a loaded weapon nobody wanted to touch. Even Torres stopped moving. Cruz broke the silence first. So what's the move? Reyes looked at Hart, then at Lena, then at the paper in his hand with his own name turning into instruction. And for the first time, the answer didn't come out anger. It came out of understanding. We don't erase this file, Reyes said. Lena watched him closely. He continued. We poison it. Hart's eyes narrowed. Bishop said it cleaner. Make the model expensive. Reyes nodded once. Yes. Torres cracked his neck and finally smiled mean and alive again. Now you're talking. Lena looked down at her screen, then backed up. There's one problem. Reyes waited. Lena turned the laptop so they could all see. A still frame from the yard drone. Not perfect, not clean, but enough. Reyes half in profile. Hearts visible in the van. And in the corner, blurred out. Unmistakable. Lena, not an analyst, not a distant supportive, at Reyes' shoulder in the field, exposed. Hart looked at the image and understood the weight immediately. They weren't just transferring me. He said it quietly. No, Lena replied. Her voice stayed steady. They were introducing me, a beat. Then Reyes quiet enough to feel dangerous. Now the trust structure has 2 failure points.